I always knew it was there. The way they looked at me when I spoke up in meetings, the way they smiled a little too tight when I challenged an idea, the way they called me passionate in front of clients but difficult when they thought I couldn't hear. It was never outright, not a slur shouted across a parking lot, not a name scrawled on a locker. No, it was smarter than that, slicker, harder to fight because it came wrapped in politeness and corporate jargon, but it was there, and it was heavy. I started at Brighton Consulting fresh out of grad school. Second best GPA in my class, recommendations up and down my resume. I wore my best Navy suit, straightened my hair, practiced my firm handshake in the mirror. I thought if I was smart enough, polished enough, perfect enough, they'd have no choice but to respect me. I was wrong. My first few months, it was small things. Colleagues forgetting to CC me on important emails. My ideas in meetings getting brushed aside until a white colleague repeated them, and suddenly they were brilliant. I stayed late, came in early, took on projects no one else wanted, no complaints, no attitude, just work. But still, the labels clung to me. Intense, tough, hard to read. When I smiled, they said it was forced. When I was quiet, they said I was cold. When I spoke up, they said I was hostile. I was trapped in a maze of double standards, invisible walls closing in every time I dared to be anything but agreeable. It all came to a head the year I got promoted to project lead. I should have been thrilled, and for a minute I was. I called my mom, screamed into the phone, danced around my tiny apartment. Finally, finally they saw me. Finally it was happening. But it didn't take long for the whispers to start. She's hard to work with. She's got a chip on her shoulder. She's always looking for a fight. They didn't say it outright. They didn't have to. It was in the way meetings would start without me. The way my team members forgot to loop me in on key decisions. The way my boss, Mr. Hartman, started CCing HR on every email he sent me, just in case. The final straw came 6 months later during a project review. I sat in the conference room, hands folded, notebook ready. Across from me, Mr. Hartman, a VP from New York, and someone from HR I didn't recognize. I knew something was off the moment they closed the door. "We've received feedback," Mr. Hartman said, smoothing his tie, "that you've created a hostile work environment." My mouth went dry. "What feedback?" I asked. "Several team members have expressed concerns about your tone during meetings, that you've been aggressive and confrontational." Aggressive, confrontational. There it was, the angry black woman. Not assertive, not confident. Angry. I asked for specifics. Who said it? When? What exactly did I say that was hostile? They wouldn't answer, just vague references to ongoing concerns and team morale. I walked out of that room numb, went to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and stared at the back of the door. Tears burned in my eyes, not from sadness, but from rage. I had done everything right, and it still wasn't enough. I didn't quit. I wanted to. Oh, I wanted to so badly. But then I remembered something my grandmother used to say, "Baby, never let them write your story for you." So I dried my face, straightened my jacket, and I started planning. First thing I did, I got a notebook, a plain black moleskin I kept tucked in my bag. Every meeting, every conversation, every snide comment, I wrote it down. Date, time, witnesses, exact words. I learned to smile and nod while recording everything. Second thing I did, I made allies. Not everyone in that office was against me. Some were just too scared to stand up. But fear softens when people realize they're not alone. I started inviting coworkers to lunch, listening more than talking, learning their frustrations, their doubts, their complaints, and quietly, I built a coalition. Third thing, I educated myself, company handbook, local labor laws, EEOC guidelines. I read until my eyes hurt. Knowledge was my armor now. If they were going to come for me, they'd better come correct. The turning point came during a quarterly team meeting. The same usual suspects were there. Hartman smirking at the head of the table, two department heads whispering in the corner, IHR pretending not to notice. I waited until Hartman started rambling about team cohesion and professional demeanor. Then I raised my hand. Can we define what professional demeanor means in measurable terms? I asked calmly. He blinked. Well, just general expectations of behavior. Because if we're measuring people's performance on behavior, but not providing clear standards, that seems problematic. Silence. One of my allies, a junior analyst, chimed in, "Yeah, I like clarification too." Another voice, tentative but firm, "Same here." Suddenly it wasn't just me. It was a room full of people questioning the system. Hartman looked rattled. HR shuffled their papers. And I just sat there, calm, professional, forcing them to deal with their own contradictions. After the meeting, I filed a formal complaint, not just about the harassment, but about the systemic bias built into our so-called professionalism standards. I attached documentation, dates, quotes, witnesses. I CC'd the regional director and the diversity and inclusion officer and legal. The fallout was slow at first. Whispers, awkward glances, meetings behind closed doors. Then came the investigation, anonymous surveys, interviews, policy audits. Turns out I wasn't the only one who felt it. There were dozens of complaints, patterns they couldn't ignore. A month later, Hartman resigned to pursue new opportunities. HR quietly revamped their policies. Mandatory bias training was implemented. And me, I got promoted. Director of Community Engagement. New office. Bigger paycheck. Team of my own. But it wasn't about the title. It was about the fight. About not letting them crush me into silence. About proving to them and to myself that I was more than the box they tried to shove me into. The new office was small, no fancy windows, no leather chairs, but it was mine. I hung up a photo of my grandmother on the wall, the one where she's laughing, head thrown back, eyes bright, a reminder of why I fought. At first, people were cautious around me. Some treated me like I was radioactive, afraid if they got too close, they might catch whatever virus I had that made me angry. But over time, that changed because I didn't walk around angry. I walked around ready to listen, ready to advocate, ready to lift others the way no one had lifted me. One afternoon, about 6 months into the new role, a young black woman from accounting knocked on my door. Tasha, bright, ambitious, terrified. She stood there twisting her notebook in her hands. "Miss Robinson," she said, "I don't want to cause trouble, but can I talk to you?" I smiled and waved her in. She sat down and told me everything, the microaggressions, the comments about her attitude when she asked for clarification, the emails where she was left off important threads. Sounded familiar, painfully familiar. I listened, didn't interrupt, didn't minimize. And when she was finished, I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You are seeing exactly what's happening." She burst into tears, not because she was seen, because finally someone believed her. Together we built a strategy, documentation, support networks, training proposals, and slowly the ripple effect spread. Tasha found her voice. Others did too. Soon I wasn't the only one asking hard questions in meetings, wasn't the only one refusing to smile and nod at every injustice. We started getting real conversations on the calendar, uncomfortable, messy, necessary conversations. We reviewed hiring practices. We reworked promotion policies. We made sure that professionalism didn't just mean act white, act quiet. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, people who smiled to your face and stabbed you in the back, upper management who nodded through trainings and changed nothing. But the ground was shifting. You could feel it. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling board presentation, I stood at the elevator waiting for the doors to open. Behind me, I heard a voice. "You know, you're not what I expected." I turned. It was one of the senior VPs, a man who, 6 months ago, wouldn't even make eye contact with me. He looked uncomfortable. "Good. I used to think you were just angry all the time," he said. I smiled. "Maybe I was. Maybe I had a reason." He nodded slowly, and for the first time it felt like maybe, just maybe, he understood. Months turned into a year, and the year turned into something I hadn't dared to imagine when I first walked into Brighton Consulting. Respect, not just tolerance, not just forced smiles, real respect. Because when you stand your ground long enough, when you refuse to be small for their comfort, people start to realize they can't define you. You define yourself. At our annual company meeting, they announced a new initiative, Voices Rising, a mentorship and leadership program designed for underrepresented employees. Guess who they asked to lead it? Me. I stood on that stage in front of 300 people, executives, analysts, interns, and I told them the truth. I told them about the nights I cried in my car before going home, about the days I sat in meetings feeling invisible and hypervisible at the same time, About the years I spent trying to make myself smaller just to survive, and about the moment I decided to stop shrinking. I looked out at the sea of faces, some open, some guarded, some still skeptical. Good. Change is uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. I finished with this. When you call a woman angry for standing up for herself, you're telling on yourself, not on her. You're admitting that her courage unsettles you. You're confessing that her power scares you. Well, it should. Silence, then applause. Real applause. Not polite clapping. Real, thunderous. Afterward, Tasha found me in the lobby. She hugged me tight and whispered, "You made it possible for the rest of us." I squeezed her hand. "Now you make it possible for the next ones." Because that's what it's about, isn't it? Not just surviving, but clearing the path for the ones who come after you. Sometimes late at night, I still think about those early days. The looks, the whispers, the walls built out of assumptions and fear. But now I know. Walls can be climbed. Barriers can be broken. Narratives can be rewritten. They called me the angry black woman. And they were right. I am angry. Angry at injustice. Angry at silence. Angry at the lies we tell ourselves to stay comfortable. But I am also brave and brilliant and unbreakable, and I'm not going anywhere.